Hi, everybody. This is Passion and Words Editing Services with Robert Gibson once again. And we're here for FYI for your information, where we're building a community one book at a time, linking readers and authors together. If you are a reader, you should be listening in. We try to hopefully give you a new author to fall in love with. And if you're an author, you need to be here to talk about your books and get new readers. We are here with an old friend of mine, Kimolisa Mings, and we've met. God, I don't even know if I should try to date how long ago that was. But I found her on WordPress, her WordPress blog, and I followed. It was Kim or Lisa, I remember the name. Um, a play on her name as Kim or Lisa, and I followed her writing journey from there. I was and still am a lover of all things written, and I fell in love with her stories. So from there, um, as we got to talk to one another and stuff, I realized that there was a booming open mic sort of scene going on in Antigua where she's from. And so I was like, okay, someday I can end up getting up there. And so happened that because of connecting to her, I ended up getting involved with a Antiguan who invited me to come see her in Antigua, which meant I was able to go and meet Kimolisa and all the rest of the people that I was sort of fawning over. Because we went from I went from her I went from her WhatsApp, her WordPress group or her WordPress blog into the Facebook group, which is where I met everybody else. And as I started sharing poetry there, then the opportunity came for me to come to meet people in person and to see Kimberly. And it's been a good long while since then. And so I'm really glad to get a chance to connect with you. How are you doing?
I am I'm
Taking it
doing
easy.
well. You know what
Yes.
the situation is?
Hmm.
Even if you're not doing well, not doing 100%, I'm going to push and say I'm doing well so that I can
Yeah.
get the ball rolling.
Yes, I understand how you mean. It is like if you constantly put everything, the negative energy up there and out there, it just piles on more negative energy. And although it feels like crap, speaking that or positive energy and saying, okay, I don't feel it now, but I see it coming. And I can call it by saying it. I believe me, I'm in that same exact boat right now. I'm in that same exact boat right now. But you would not. I have not. I know it's been a long time, but Kim, I did not realize you had so many books.
Mm.
I, I did like you had so much books. I mean, there is Valentine for Vows. I think that's one of the last ones. There's Seducing Her Fake Husband, More Than Friends. And I think the one that I remember from when we first met is all the way at the back. She wanted a love poem, a collection of poems. And there's a lot of the poems, lots of books in here. What got you into writing to start with?
What got me started in
It,
poetry or into
well,
the
well,
book?
well, start with the poetry because the poetry is how we met, but writing in general. Start with the
Uh,
poetry.
Actually, I think I would go all the way back to say around 10, 11, and I had an experience that I wanted to write about.
Hmm.
And from there, there was always something in me that I wanted to write.
Hmm.
And then fast forward to age 13, I had an assignment to write a poem. And after I had handed it in and everything, the teacher came back and she said that it was good. So from there, that was the first thing that just got me started in writing poetry. And like I would be writing poetry anywhere and everywhere in
Hmm.
any country that I'm in. I would be writing poetry. So I built up a collection of poems. And then in 2008, uh, that's when blogging started. it up, and I started paying attention to blogging. So that's where I decided, okay, let me take what I have and what I'm writing and put it into this blog. But then also before that, let's say early 2000s, there was on like cable on HBO, there was Deaf Poetry.
Yes, that
And
poetry.
that was
Yeah.
like inspirational. And even though I was in New York and there were places that you could go, I was kind of chicken. But then when I came back to Antigua, I paid attention to the poetry scene. And then wherever, and I think I even did a couple poetry. I organized some poetry nights as well. But whenever there was a poetry, I was there.
Yeah.
I took part. And then let's go fast forward a little bit. So that was like 2008 to say 2012. I came across self-publishing, but I didn't think of it as something that was accessible. But then I was like on another woman's blog, and I think that was more like self-help. And she said that she had a book. She had like an ad on her site saying she had a book, and I'm just like, you have a book? So when I went looking, I discovered Smashwords, which is a ebook distributor, and I thought that was accessible. So from there, I started writing short stories, and then they grew longer, and I decided I was going to go into romance, and that's kind of where it started. And then I had that. In the beginning, I was like, well, okay, I have this collection of poetry. Let me put that together. So I had a spreadsheet, everything, selected the poems, and I compiled it, and people liked it. And now, although I've stepped back from poetry, it kind of reminds me of like from The Godfather, where it's like every time I think I get away, I'm pulled back in. So I'm contemplating maybe doing readings from the book or from my blog, just not letting those old poems die, but reintroduce them through a different medium.
Yeah.
But also writing. Yeah.
Do you still use WordPress? Are you still on that blog? Do you still use the blog for other things?
Not really. Actually, it was Blogger, and I haven't written poetry in a while because I've been focused on stories. But every now and then I would stop and I would like pick up a poem, and I would be like, oh, this is pretty good, because a few months back, one of the organizers of the poetry nights, she had reached out to me to take part in a radio program. And although I didn't think I was a spoken word artist, I took part, and I got positive feedback. And then for Black History Month, the local radio station, not a local radio station, the local TV station, they asked me to do a spoken word at the botanical gardens.
Right. Well,
it's just something that's, it's like there's something that you do well, or that you have a collection of things that you did well, and why not
pursue it? Yeah. Why not push it to see how far it went? I find that whenever I speak to people, we seem to almost always have similar origin stories, because I started as a teenager. Before being a teenager, I was writing whenever I could. And I got into poetry around that same time, 13, 14, having the inspiration from my teacher as well. So, almost everybody seems to have that same sort of, somebody who came alongside them, saw what they were doing, and encouraged them to continue going, So it's always good to continue to see and to help inspire, just by encouragement, what other people are doing. I mean, I always say this, but if I could go back in time and speak to that 14-year-old and say to him, because of this poem that you just wrote. Yes, everybody laughed at it. It was funny, but because you did that, you're going to end up known all over the world. You are going to be known as a poet. You're going to be called to go to different parts of the world to perform. You're going to have your own business. I at that time would not have believed me, honestly. And so but for me, when I started writing, and I'm sure you could probably say the same, writing for me started off as catharsis. Like
Mm,
it literally was just a way for me to process my feelings.
mm,
Being the person who uh again, I would date myself a bit here, but I used to when I used to watch. I can't watch Family Matters reruns of Family Matters, for example, because the Stephen Urkel character was way too close to home. How people treated him was how they treated me, and literally that scarred me for years. So I sort of like most inside of myself and just wrote. So when I felt down or when I had stuff to process, yes, there were some people that I could speak to, but I always had my pen. And I was always able to write out what I felt, And even there was a poem that I wrote called, I think I remember it being called something like Depression, and it only had like 3 or 4 lines, but it was just how I felt at the time. It was just how to compress and process what I felt. And I'm sure, as you were writing, especially those early poems, you had, it was probably the same thing, having stuff inside that needed to be processed and writing it out. And
right.
then just having people actually share the fact was sharing those things, was sharing those early pieces, especially, was it hard at first, knowing that it was something that you were using for your sort of like, again, it was sort of therapy for you?
Uh, Not really. Not really. I think what I'm grateful for that there was like a disconnect
Hmm.
after it was written, and in some instances it was probably a storytelling or me like inhabiting another
A character,
person.
right?
Yeah, right. Or it's just like exploring a theme.
Hmm.
Say
Hmm.
like something I may have come across and I just wanted to explore it. So I never really had like a heavy, and I think maybe also I had like a diary or something else that I could have used
Hmm.
for exploring that,
Hmm. Hmm.
but still the poetry was a creative way
Hmm.
of expressing something that I was like probably going through.
Understood.
And I
Understood.
think it's kind of great is that by putting out things, other people could probably see themselves in it or can relate.
That's true. Yeah, that makes sense. It's true because when I write things and I put them out there, and then people, the fact that I put something out there that you actually like at first was just mind blowing to me because I was writing just I was writing for fun. I was writing, yes, catharsis or whatever, but then it was fun to get it out to get it out. And then when they actually put it out there and somebody actually liked it. That first poem, I always remember, it's called The Student's Lament, and it was a humorous piece where it was insulting everybody from the headmistress all the way down to the janitor. It was just some sort of funny piece that I was inspired by whatever we were doing in English Lit. And then when I was asked to read it in front of the crowd, in front of the class, I had I had a panic attack. But I got up, I breathed deep, and I did it. Having Knowing that at that point in time, people used to just ridicule me for just being there.
Mhm.
And now seeing that I had the power to influence that. So they were laughing not at me, but with me. There were something that I said and did, they actually enjoyed. It did something to me. And I remember my second piece, it had a long title. It was called Dist, The Lamentations of a Lonely Boy. And it was this one was also humorous, but it was like, so I picked a persona from each farm. This was third farm at the time. So I like this girl from 3A1. To her, I'm like grass on her lawn. To her, I'm just an insignificant thing. She won't even accept my engagement ring. I like this girl in 3A2, but to her, I'm like the sole of her shoe. I pulled at her dress and ripped some more. She looked at me severely, slapped, and swore. So I continued going along that line. And when I read that piece, oh man, the fact I actually could still remember that video. But when I read that piece, everybody not only were they like they loved it, but they took that piece and tried to figure out which girl it was speaking about in each farm. And there was only one girl who was actually true. I think the girl in 3A3 was the one that was actually, but all the others were made up. But they didn't know that, and they were just trying to figure out. And for a whole lunch period, these people are trying to figure out which girl I'm talking about. And looking back at that now, it started to give me that level of self acceptance. I mean, acceptance through others, but the fact that they were accepting me gave me a little bit more courage, and eventually led to me accepting myself. Um, so yeah, poetry did a lot for me. And as people say, I remember people say that the scriptures I believe say that a man's gift makes way for him. And then as much as I don't follow scripture much anymore, I remember that scripture. A man's gift makes way for him, and I can definitely see in our cases that those poems led to bigger things. Smash words. One of the things that I see from looking like you are Googleable. I'm not sure if you know this, but you're Googleable. So I could Google Kimolisa Mings and I see Goodreads, I see the Amazon, I see LinkedIn, and in LinkedIn I see freelance. I see what is it? Let me look at it again. It's right here. But I see it says book formatter, you
Yeah.
know? So book formatting, and that reminded me of like you're getting into smash words. Um how easy is it? And I say how easy is it to do how easy was it to get into to actually figure out how to format for smash words? Was it something that you had to really dig into? Obviously, you have to research it, but was it something that you picked up easily, or was it something that you had to do a lot of trial and error to figure out?
Actually, uh, it was just that they had their guide was easy for me to understand
Mm,
because not only did it have the text, they also showed the pictures of it. So I
okay.
could have like the guide next to it and I was just like doing it one by one. And
Hmm.
then I don't know, one day it just came to mind that okay, I don't even know how I found out about Fiverr, which is the platform through which I offer the
Hmm.
services.
Hmm.
But just one day it was just like, okay, here's the plan. You're going to set up this account. You're going to offer this service because you
Hmm.
can't do it.
Hmm.
And with time, it just like slowly built up. And the more I did it, the more I learned about it. And because I was doing it for other people, I
Hmm.
learned the little intricacies of it.
Yes, yes.
And like for instance, some of it was already in the guide where it says
Hmm.
that you can't use the Microsoft Word table of contents to create the
Hmm.
table of contents. You have to manually make it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Or it could be I delivered a manuscript to someone and they said that there's problems. There's an error message.
Hmm. So
So I
then we gotta
would
go fix it.
yeah, I would go into because it would say like an EPUB check issue. So I don't know, I don't think it's still available, but there was like an
Hmm.
EPUB checker
Hmm.
thing,
Hmm.
and it would tell you the error, and I would just be looking through this lines of code, and then it was like, oh, okay, there seems to be something saying PNG. And that's when I realized, okay, they don't like PNG files, they only like JPEGs. So now that's locked in my mind. So every time I do any formatting, I check all the images to ensure that it's safe. So it's just, I learned as time went on.
Yeah. I remember when you started the Smash Words, and I thought I went on trying to figure it out, but I didn't have that much patience. So
Mm.
I didn't because I think I got into formatting later in life. I do the same formatting, but I do it mostly for KDP now. I do it for I do it for people to put their books up on Amazon. But I do have to learn I do have to learn the EPUB because for as those who follow my podcast or my follow me on social media would know, Amazon and I had a fight and they took down all my books. So now I had to figure out how to put them back up again. And using Ingram Spark, Ingram Spark, I have some of my books back up using Ingram Spark, and therefore now on Barnes and Noble and stuff like that. But I've not been able to replicate the PDFs, the EPUBs, because is I have software. Kindle Create is what I use to take the JPEG and just the PDF and make that into a Kindle file. But yeah, I need to figure it out because one, my own books need to go back up as electronic books, and two is to upgrade my skill to be able to do this for other people. All right, how did you get into romance slash erotica? These stories, how did these stories morph? How did you morph into or move from poetry into stories and then from stories into specifically romantic and erotic stories?
Well, I kind of think of it as like I grew up retail, I grew up business. My mother always had a business. Well, from age 4, she
Mhm,
always had a business. So it was
mhm,
always in the back of my mind, business. And my father, he had his hardware store. And the first story I did, it wasn't romance. It was let me see. The very first one was like a retelling of uh Little Red Hoodie, Little
mhm,
Red Riding Hood,
mhm.
where it would be like a Caribbean, and the the hero is the last person you expect. And I
Right.
believed in that story that I even had it edited by the one of our local authors who does editing.
Mhm,
And I started with that, and it was just like from that point, I was just like coming up with these various stories. But then when I looked at it at the time, I recognized that romance was the more profitable genre.
mhm,
So I just decided, okay, that's what I'm going to write. And then I decided on like a niche. At the time, it was Black women, white man romances. So that's what I had done. And it was like, okay, what else is popular? And I think one of the first ones was like friends to lovers. So I did that. But then now I'm thinking on it, I did have that learning aspect of it because I had done the story and it became a series and it like a cliffhangery kind of series. And
mhm,
then from there I learned one, um, that people didn't like cliffhangery kind of series.
mhm,
So from there I learned that and I wouldn't do that again. And my sister and my friend, they didn't like my female character. So
mhm,
from there, I decided, okay, so I took a workshop, an online workshop, and I worked on character development. And then from there, I created like more stories. And with each book, you
mhm.
get better.
Right.
And and I also started buying books on the craft, and with each one, I get better, get better. And in a way, you kind of see in the reviews
Mhm.
that people are being more and more positive.
Mhm.
As for the erotica, um, I just figured, you know what, let me try this out.
Mhm.
And let me see. Du-du-du-du-du. Actually, I had done a collection. No, yeah, I had done a couple of short stories, erotica, but I didn't use my name. I used a pen name.
Mhm.
And strangely enough, every now and then, people would buy those books. Well, actually, I did it as short stories, and then I realized people aren't really fans of short stories individual. So I had compiled it, and every now and then it would
Mhm.
sell. And then I had done I, my friend, she had stopped and she was like, "Why don't you write stories set in the Caribbean?" So then I decided, okay, that's what I'm going to do. Although I did let me see how I would say it. It's a not really sci-fi, but it's set in the future on
Mhm.
the island, my fictional island of Redonda, and I kind of liked how it felt.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like my island, but then I have the freedom to do whatever, create that can be similar, but not doesn't have to be exactly like
Right.
that.
Right.
And then I decided, okay, I'm going to write romance set in the thing. And then I had done this story, The Pleasure Is Mine. And from that, because of a particular party, I thought, hey, there's so much still that can happen from this.
Mhm.
So that's why I created the Bacchanal Suite, Bacchanal Turn Up short story
Mhm.
collections. And then from there, I was
Yes.
like, okay, let's try Kinky Caribbean. And I created, okay, 12 stories, one every month. And then from that's why sometimes I feel kind of bad because I kind of play the system maybe because it's like here are these individual stories that you can get for 99 cents, or you can read them through Amazon can through KDP, and
Mhm.
then you can take a set of those stories, like three of the stories, and then you have an anthology, and then I have like a through line story which is called the Misadventures of Janicia Cole, and that is a compilation anthology. And then I can have um, the Kinky Caribbean Book One and Book Two, which is like a compilation of 6 stories. So
Mhm.
it looks like a lot, but it's just me putting the different ones into compilations, anthologies.
Well, keep playing the system because the system needs to be played for one, and two, like it gives me a great sense of wow, you know what? It's time for me to get back on the horse and start doing my own things because I I writing my novel was nothing like that. When I wrote my novel, I was writing my poetry all the way through. And then I
Mhm.
thought, no one's buying this poetry. Let me see what happens if I put my poems into a story.
Mhm.
So when you read Make It Rain is the story of a very whatless poet. And for those who are not in Barbados or in the Caribbean, what this just means he's philandering. He slings it there, you know. Um, but he is an erotic poet, and when he and when he when he's on stage, I'm using pieces of my own work to and what I tried to do. My thought process at the time was if I'm doing a piece of poetry with this story and I only use a snippet of it, right? Like for instance, fetish. Fetish is written in such a way that you only hear him speaking once or twice, and then you're seeing him talking to the or gesticulating to the audience, and the audience's reactions to his piece. But you don't actually read the entire poem. In my head, I'm thinking they're gonna want to see what this entire poem is, and they can go and buy erotic where the book is, where you can find the entire book.
Oh, okay, okay.
That was easy, but you see, I when listening to how you got into writing, as you said, everything was business oriented, and you went and did basically you did like research, and you started by, okay, this is what the market wants, this is what I can do, let's go in this direction. So I would say to those listening, don't follow my example, follow Kim, because I didn't know. Listen, it's so bad that honestly, after I've been reading and writing and performing for such a long time, that you would not believe that it is only within the last month that I actually realized that erotica is a subgenre of romance. I did not know that, because I write I write out of experiences. I write out of I like Make It Rain was written in such a way that even up to now, people ask me if the main character is me. And yeah, to an extent, because I use my people, there's an adage, people say write what you know, and that's how it started. What I knew about was writing as a performance poet. I didn't know anything else. I was a performance poet, so I wrote from that perspective. But as I said, Rain is not me. I treat women with much more respect than he does, you know. And but so in 2017, when I released my book, people actually liked it, and people up to like 3 or 4 years after that book was written, I've had people threatening me with bodily harm because I have not finished. I've not given them a sequel. You know, truth be truth be told, I had no intention of doing a sequel for this book. That's the truth. I did. This book was a marketing tool to me to get back to poetry. So I didn't even contemplate doing a sequel for this book. And people are like, "Where's the sequel?" I'm like, it boggled my mind that you want to know more about these characters, right?
Yeah, they're invested, and like when you're saying that, it reminds me of these short stories, the short story well series, Integration, which is a steamy, yeah, erotic, um, sci-fi, space opera-esque
Mm,
thing.
mhm.
And I had done the two of them so far. It's Integration and Oration. And there is a continuation. And people want that continuation. It was to the point where I had like started up a Substack, and I had re-engineered my website, and I had the Substack as the blog. And somebody had reached out to me through it, and they were like, "Yeah, so are you going to finish that one?" So now this year, I am going to finish it, because it's like I know what happens next,
Mhm.
but because I was always doing something else, I never finished it.
Mhm.
But,
Mhm.
and I think maybe that's part of why I'm like not in a good mind space, is that I think I've taken away from just the joy of writing to
Yes,
like too much of the business.
yes,
It kind of
yes.
just kind of sullies it a bit, so it's not as enjoyable. So
I,
because like with Integration, it was just like I didn't I didn't hem myself into like this is how a story is written, this is the plot or whatever. I just let the characters be, let them flow, and others enjoyed it.
right,
They were
right.
these characters that they enjoyed. So I think that's why part of me wants to get to a place where the writing is
Just for fun
just
again.
right, just master your writing, get better as a writer, and then I like to be able to compartmentalize. Whereas
Mhm,
like
mhm.
writing is writing. Your only goal is to get the words down, to get it crafted and whatever, and then have the business where it's like letting people know that it exists.
Yes, I agree with you. I believe I stopped writing for several reasons, or I stopped writing I stopped writing poetry for a number of years, and I recently started back. But the even the writing of my novels, I have like four unwritten, half written like WIPs just sitting there. Um and I was battling physical, I was battling emotional stuff going on and personal stuff that was actually hindering me from focusing on writing and stuff like that. But yeah, I definitely can relate to writing for fun and like reading for fun versus doing it for business. Now that I run Passionate Words, I legit can't read for fun. I legit don't read for fun anymore. I read for business. I read and I'm editing all the time in my head. You know what I mean? And so like literally I I, I have somebody who gave me one of my clients came to Barbados. She is a Belgian, but she lives in Germany, and she came home to do some personal things with her mom. And she gave me a copy of a book that she had written. I still have yet to read it. I look at it, I'm like up to today, I looked at it, I gotta start reading this book. But because I edit for a living,
Mm-hmm.
all I want to do when I turn off this computer is go and zone out on TikTok because I'm not thinking anymore, you know?
Yeah.
So I do understand 110% the idea of um writing for fun and doing the aspects of writing for writing's sake versus the business side. How has it been in terms of marketing, in terms of getting people? Yes, we know that romance is the number one genre, has been for years, but um, I myself know that without that, I jokingly say, don't do what I do, do what Kim did because I literally just wrote this book for fun. I wrote this book, like I said, to try. I did no market research, I did nothing. So what happened one time was there was a Facebook group um, for writers and for readers. And I I had gotten a very, very beautiful, very, very bright and vibrant cover done by a local artist here. Paid a lot of money to get it done. And I loved this cover
Mm.
because I could see, I know that the book is basically, I always say, because in terms of trying to categorize Make It Rain, because I didn't know anything about tropes at the time. Again, I
Mm-hmm.
only figured out what tropes were this year.
Last year.
like,
Mm-hmm.
like, I only figured out what chores were last year, literally, and that came from another author of mine who came under us as now one of our authors who told me she feels as though like she feels like in a box when she has to focus on a particular trope, and it was like. And then I started because I had heard it, but I didn't understand and didn't understand. And it was like, friends to lovers and and the hero's journey and all this. I was like, what the hell is this? And now, so honestly, I now feel like I gotta go now and say figure out all of this stuff. And I do have to figure out from the perspective of people that are coming on board, passionate words, wanting a book coach. So that means I got to teach, I got to know what I'm talking about to teach them, so it means I have to look into it. But I didn't know what tropes were, and I wasn't writing for that. Like, so within again thinking that erotica is subgenre of romance, I can understand now why one of my good friends at the when she read Make It Rain, there is a subplot of the two secondary characters forming a relationship. Actually, well, the main characters, the female main character, Jasmine, and Rain's best friend, Ian, started to form a relationship. But that is just because I let my characters do what they want. I just,
Yeah.
I threw my characters in there. Um,
Yeah.
I am, I am forever a pantser. I have decided, I knew where I wanted my characters to end up,
Mm-hmm.
but I had no, no map to get there.
Right.
I started writing because when people wanted me to write a novel for years, I told them I am a poet. I think in verse. I don't write prose. I don't know nothing about that. So I went and I got when I decided let me try to do it. I went and I got this book called The 90-Day Novel by Alan Watts. Alan Watts, that's if for and what he does is it's basically like a small workbook, and then you have something to do every day. But one thing I realized is that you do not write anything until like day 45.
Oh yeah, sometimes you're just doing the prep work
Creating the
before.
world, like
Yeah.
you're creating the world, creating the characters. Like up to this, I have this book in my library. I have not finished this book I have not actually finished that book yet. Why? Because I did what the book said for like the first 12 days. I created the world, I created the characters. But then I saw Rain and Jasmine, the two main characters, have sex in my head. And then I was like, oh crap, I gotta write this down. That's how it started. Because it was literally like, what happens next? And so the entire book starts with the two words, I'm pregnant. So I'm looking at it from the drama of they've just had sex, she's pregnant, now what? And the book literally spilled from that. I had no outline, no plot, nothing. The only thing I knew was that I wanted it to be somewhat of a, which what I realized later was called a redemption arc. But I wanted at one point somewhere that Rain would be sitting on Hackleton's cliff here in Barbados, and like thinking about his life. And like, I need to do better. I need to like deciding whether he's gonna continue this life of just being of slinging the dick or being a wholesome person now with a child on the way. I had no idea that was called a redemption arc. I had no idea what that was called, but that was the only thing I knew. And so I love, honestly, I love putting Rain in trouble. I put him in trouble, and then I'm like, okay, now how are you gonna get out? You know?
Yeah.
But it
But
is
then I
go
think
ahead.
that's like one of the good things is that you decide to do it your way. Because
Mhm,
everybody approaches it differently. And I think that is something that we can all give ourselves grace, where it's just like, you know what, you just do it your way and you do it to the best that you can.
mhm,
And I'm actually talking to myself where it's just like, yeah, right now you probably think you write crap or whatever, but there's somebody out there that's like, oh, I love this book. Because that same book series that my friend and my sister said, I don't like those characters. There's a review where somebody says, oh, I love this book. And I'm just like, oh, what? I
listen,
thought this was terrible. But yet,
listen.
I still have that book up there. That book is still selling.
Mhm,
But
mhm,
now, like, I'm now dealing with the marketing piece.
mhm,
And there's like a lot of education in that. And there's also learning the platforms through which you're utilizing.
mhm, mhm,
And like, okay, over and over in every marketing sphere, they say, know your audience, right? And I can say Black women who like romance, right? And so then you ask the question, where are the Black women? They're there at Instagram and they're there at TikTok because these are the women that you live with. So, okay, I know that. What is the content that these platforms are asking for?
mhm.
Or even just being in there and just like exploring and seeing what's working. And I think that's another thing where it's like the depressing moment right now is just like you do the thing and it works. And it's just that, okay, it works. You know, you're working the system, but it's not as pleasurable as the writing, you
Right.
know. So that's where it kind of like compartmentalize, where it's just like, I don't want to be living at these platforms because it kind of strips away at you because
Exactly.
there are these metrics and it's like, oh, I don't have all these people following. But it's like your worth is not connected to that. So there's like being a writer, that's just who you are, but your worth is not limited to it. So I kind of want to be in a space where I can just like compress it, some areas, the business of it, because I don't want my worth as an individual to be, I'm an author, I have to be meeting these metrics.
Yes, yes,
I'm
yes.
just happy to be a person, and I just want to have the relationship to be connected, because like last week we had a storm. Everybody is like, schools are closing, whatever, and then you realize at the end of the day, things shut down, and it's the people who are in your immediate surroundings that really matter.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I have to like take a step back, and it's like, yeah, these things are working, these metrics are being met, but you still need the people that you love, the connections that you have. And I think that's where I like to build up on.
Yes, I will have to say I agree with that. For one, running the business does strip away. Doing it as a business does strip away the writing and the stuff of fun. Like, and now, like, for myself, we're gonna get into, I wanna talk about closed spaces. The closed spaces thing that I'm not sure if you all run that, or if you just go there to work. So
Oh, actually, it's my sister's co-working space,
right.
and because it's just still the starting up part,
Mm,
she's still working elsewhere. So
mm.
I'm in here, just keeping the doors open,
Right, I
basically.
got you covered. Right, I wanted to bring that up from the perspective of being self employed, and knowing and understanding that you have to keep your lights on, you have to pay your bills, and although so these things need to happen, but as you said, there has to be a balance of the business and the I mean, I know the last time that I wrote something just for fun, just because again, it's just been business, business, business. It's just like, if the business isn't going well, I am not in a place to write because I'm too busy thinking about where I can get my next paycheck from. I've stopped working for somebody else now for like 3 years straight. So it's all on me. If I don't get
Yeah.
business through the door, and for the last couple of months, things have been rough. So I have not been in a position where I want to write anything, but at the end of the day, eh, I'm reminded of I'm reminded of okay, I'm reminded of going back to my friend who when she was beta reading for Make It Rain, she's beta reading, she came to me and she says, I hate this character. And I'm like, what? And immediately start feeling down because I'm like, oh God, she's saying that I can't write. And she's like, no, 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 you misunderstand what I'm
Yeah.
saying. You've written such a complex, a well-developed character. You've written him so well, I hate his guts, right?
Mhm.
And I mean, that took a lot of getting accustomed to, what at one scene where he was very, very callous in terms of the lady he slept with, she comes up to me and she says, Robert, I want you to give him every single STD there is on the planet at the same time. I'm like, what? I can't do that. Yes, it's your book. You can do it. He deserves to die. And she goes on a rant for 15 minutes about how much he hates this man. And I mean, and I have other people. I've had one particular person who said he is who he is. So if I make the redemption arc to the point where he's a good person, he's not that same person anymore. Because in like some of my yeah, we gonna wrap up just now. We can wrap up just now. Some of the some of the WIPs that I'm working on
Uh-huh.
are continuations from what happens there, or basically another situation. Something happened afterwards, and obviously, what pulled people to him is the fact he is who he is. So yes, he's trying to be good, but he doesn't stay that way. That's why. That's why the I do have it as Make It Rain, like Make It Rain, but two. But the subtitle is called Rainfall. So the fall of rain, rainfall. And so and I also am working somewhere down the back of it. Um, my friend who wanted to see Ian and Jasmine's relationship from book one, that's also something that I'm thinking about. So there is, although I had no intention of writing more sequels, people do, listening to your audience and knowing your audience does help because people start to be like, I want this, I want that. And as you start to give them what they want, then it gets bigger, you get bigger. But I agree with you, the marketing is sometimes a killer, especially when you're doing it all by yourself.
Yeah, it's and that's when you stop and you realize, yeah, these marketing is a job in itself. There are people who are employed where that is all they do. So it's, but then it's just like it's something you have to do. And that's kind of like one of the things I had to accept is that, okay, yeah, these books are there, but you have to let people know. And you have to create systems, you have to set up things so that you continuously letting people know. And I have to, every now and then I tell myself, you know what? Today, all your job is to let one person know that this book exists,
Mm.
you know, and that could lead to a sale.
Yeah.
So, because that's another thing. You're on social media, you're seeing the likes, the whatever, the people following, but that's not a book sale. That
Mm.
is why you're there.
Mm.
So that's why I had to do that mental like thing where it's like, what exactly? Why are you here? You're here to sell books. If don't get caught up in the other metrics. Your metrics are selling books. Your metrics are getting your book seen.
Mm.
Because, and yes, the likes help in making it be seen, the engagement help in making it seen, but this is what your goal is, as well as interacting with people, getting to know people. Yeah,
Right,
but
right, right.
it's, and I think also I listen to a lot of business thing. I grew up business, but then sometimes you have to stop and it's like there is more to life than that. And sometimes you have to kind of find that balance. And when I saw myself getting sucked, being pulled away from the things that you enjoy, like
Mm.
taking a drive around the island, going to the beach, when you stop and it's like, so if you're so caught up in the business, yes, it pays bills and everything, but what is the kind of life you're living? You know,
Yeah.
those things you stop and figure out.
Well, yeah, um, I definitely am hearing you loud and clear. I know you're talking to yourself, but you're talking to me too. So as we wrap up, I just want to let you give a chance to let people know how they can find you. It has been awesome hearing this talk. Like I said, talking about stuff from marketing and the balance and especially talking to new writers, you have to let them know that it's a long road, but it's satisfying once you keep what's important in front of you. If you start to like wrap around the metrics and feel bad because you're not at a million likes or whatever the case is. I've been constantly been because my work is 99% erotica. I've been canceled by Instagram about 3 or 4 times, and I have to start my followership all over again 3 or 4 times, and that sucks, because I lose
Yeah.
connection. You lose connection with people that you start having relationship with, and because so. But as we go, I just want you to give people who are listening, especially new writers, some a bit of encouragement and advice, and then two, you can end off by letting people know how they can find you and stuff like that.
Okay, advice. One, that first book is when you finish that first book, you're either okay, you can either go the marketing route and just start pushing that book, or you can work on your next book because those $1 million authors, they are one in a million. That is why they are advertised because they are the unicorn. For your regular schmegular writer, and even the authors that are celebrated, that is not their day job. Jamaica Kincaid, who is known as an Antiguan author, she is a professor at a prestigious college. This is not her day job, you know. But then on the other hand, you have a Stephen King. Yeah, he has a lot of things, but he can't write anything else. And he has to utilize his name brand because he can write a book and use another name and it will not do as well as if he wrote what people are expecting of Stephen King, right? Consider that you're going to have to set yourself in a niche. Look at James Patterson. You know exactly what he writes, right? But most important, sit down and know what you as a writer wants. Do you want to be writing are you planning on writing one book a year? Are you deciding that I'm going to write one book every 5 years? Are you going to be a romance writer and write 3 or 4 books a year? It's up to you. Who are the characters you're going to be following? What are the tropes are you going to be writing in? Sit down and figure out what you want as a writer for you and what will give you sanity. Because sometimes you're going down one route and you're going to be miserable and you think this is what you want. How you can find me? Hey, Google. But anyway, it's,
yes, Google.
I am the only Kimolisa Mings there is. I am one of 2 Kimolisas. And the other one, I don't really see her out and about on the webs. So I'm on my own website, kimolisamings.com, and I'm on Instagram and TikTok on a daily basis in terms of putting things out there. And yeah, I have a Facebook. I haven't really figured it out, although I saw recently this morning that in terms of use, it's like YouTube is at the top with a lot of people using YouTube. Then you have Facebook and then Instagram and other places. So I'm going to have to figure out, because I noticed that people have been going to my Facebook page. So I'm going to have to populate that.
Right. Well, thank you so much. This has been a very interesting interview. I've enjoyed this. This is catching up for me. This is not just, I'm using FYI as a way to connect. Again, like I said, we're connecting one book at a time, one readers and authors. And to me, this is not just connecting with an author, it's connecting with a friend I haven't even seen in generations now. So I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for allowing us to have this interview. Thank you for letting us have this talk, because it really has been great. So you've been watching FYI with Passionate Words Editing Services. My name is Robert Gibson. We've been talking to Kimolisa Mings. So definitely look her out on anything, YouTube, Facebook, or whatever. Look for Kimolisa Mings. She's the only one on the planet on the internet, so you should be able to find her under anything with that name. And definitely, if you're interested in being a part of our show, please DM us as well, and see you next week. How do you close this thing?